Can a RAM disk increase the speed of your computer 100 bajillion million times? TLDR? No it can't. Yes, as those of you who read the title of this video may have astutely guessed, we'll be talking about RAM disks today. Are they a device that can speed up your computer up to 50 times, as one article read? Well, no. RAM disks, however, can be very useful in niche areas, or as a way to boost the performance of certain applications. But other than that, the practical uses, especially for your typical computer user, are limited, and probably not worth the time put into them. But anyways, these devices aren't totally useless. I, in fact, run a RAM disk on my computer, and I quite like it. So let's dig into RAM disks. So to begin, what is a RAM disk? Well, when you look in the file tree of your operating system of choice, you'll see a number of drives which correspond to a whole or part of a physical drive somewhere in your computer or network. These physical drives are usually hard drives with spinning platters, an SSD with much faster flash cells, or some other type of storage device like a flash drive or something. What if I told you you had in your computer right now a potential drive which is orders of magnitude faster than your hard drive or SSD? Yep, the speeds of your computer's memory absolutely blows the other drives out of the water, like literally it's not even close. So we can use a special program which turns a portion of your computer's memory into a disk that your operating system will read like a hard drive or SSD, which has the blazing fast speeds of your memory. You can take a look at the differences in speed of a traditional hard drive, an SSD, and a RAM disk here. So why on earth did the speeds look like this? Do we use these slow, bulky drives to store our operating systems, applications, and files? Well, for two reasons really. First off, memory is limited in size. It's a lot better nowadays, but DDR3 is still limited to a theoretical maximum of 128 gigs per module, and good luck finding something like that. DDR4 is a bit better, or really several bytes better, at a theoretical maximum of 520 gigabytes per module. That's a bad joke. Pretty crazy, but not realistic. And the memory in an average system is going to be much, much lower, making storing large amounts of files or a full Steam library on RAM pretty difficult. Secondly, and far more importantly, memory is what we call volatile, meaning that as soon as the computer is turned off, or the power goes, or someone trips over the power cable, all the data in memory instantly vanishes. This is why memory isn't used as a permanent storage solution like traditional drives. Rather, it's used as temporary storage. If you need more in-depth explanation of what memory is in your computer, you can take a look at this video. Alright, so I have an amazingly fast disk in my computer now. What can I do with it? Well, the practical applications I found in my testing are as follows. First off, RAM disks are great for writing temporary files too. During the operation of some programs, temporary files are generated, which, as the name suggests, are only useful temporarily. Now some of these applications write these temporary files to your hard drive, which, as discussed before, is horrendously slow compared to your memory. By creating a RAM disk, you allow these temporary files to be written to memory, increasing the speed of your application. Also, if the program is installed on this SSD, you can still employ this technique to save a few writes on your SSD, which will increase its lifespan. So this can be done with several programs, and you can look up the program you have in mind to see if a RAM disk may be applicable, but it's most useful in operating systems and web browsers. To see how to set up your OS or browser to cache to a RAM disk, a simple Google search should do the trick. There are dozens of articles on this already. I have my browsers and OS set up to cache to a RAM disk, and the performance gains are noticeable, especially when it comes to the time it takes to load a web page. This was by far the best use I have ever found for a RAM disk, and if you're feeling up to it, I highly suggest downloading the program RAMdisk, or the free version of RAMdisk, and Googling how to cache to it. It's pretty simple. Secondly, and also lastly on my list of good RAM disk uses, is using a RAM disk to host a shared network drive. This could potentially increase the speeds of your file sharing within your network, especially for commonly accessed files. This one's a bit more niche, admittedly, and probably not something most people would be interested in setting up. Also, just because I was curious, I tried installing a few games to a RAM disk. So I made a 10 gig RAM disk and installed Batman Arkham Asylum and Smite at different times due to size constraints of the RAM disk. So what did this do for me? Well, first of all, the initial load times and the load times between levels were much quicker, as my drive was in fact orders of magnitude faster than a traditional hard drive. Also, texture pop-ins in games were reduced. Not that this has always been a huge issue running those two games in particular, but these slight improvements come at a cost. Firstly, remember how I said memory is volatile, meaning it will be wiped clean when the power goes? This means the game will have to be reinstalled every time I want to play it, right? Pretty much, but there is a workaround. RAMdisk programs will give you an option to save your RAM disk contents to an image every time you shut your computer down. The only issue with this is that it greatly increases shutdown and boot up time, as it has to save an image every time you shut down, and load that image back to the RAM disk every time you boot up from one of those non-volatile drives. So yes, it is possible to run a program from a RAM disk, and you will notice that it becomes a lot snappier during its operation, but definitely comes at a cost. So, in conclusion, are RAM disks worth it? Well, sometimes, in some scenarios. Companies telling you they can receive huge speed increases for using a RAM disk are more than likely in the business of selling RAM disk software. There are, however, a few situations in which a RAM disk can be truly useful, especially for caching, or maybe for a game if you can't stand load times and are just appalled by texture pop-ins, and you're willing to tack on boot and shutdown time, and you want to deal with the other complications that come along with storing applications on a RAM disk, then sure, maybe it's for you. Anyways guys, thanks for watching. If you liked the video, if you liked it, and if you have any questions on RAM disks, feel free to post them down below and I will be sure to get to you just as fast as possible.